The winter night in Chuncheon clawed at my skin, the cold seeping through my thin coat as I stood in the dimly lit lobby of the Handong Hotel. Snowflakes clung to my braids, melting into icy droplets that traced my neck. I was Hannah Franklin, 26, a fashion designer from New York. But tonight, I felt like a ghost, hollowed out by betrayal. Michael's face, his easy smile as he lied, his hand on my best friend's waist, haunted me. I'd fled across the world to this quiet Korean city, chasing the peace promised by Handong's ancient wooden beams and snow-dusted gardens. But peace was nowhere to be found. My phone was at 3%, its screen glaring with a notification. My credit card was locked, flagged for suspicious activity. My passport, IDs, everything I needed, had vanished somewhere between JFK and Incheon. My luggage sat beside me, a battered suitcase that held the scraps of my life. I was alone, stranded in a foreign land, the weight of Michael's infidelity pressing harder than the cold. My chest tightened, tears threatening, but I swallowed them. I'd cried enough. A figure approached, his steps soft on the polished floor. He was young, maybe mid-20s, tall and broad-shouldered, his black hair neatly combed under the brim of a hotel uniform cap. His name tag read, Seo Min-jun, concierge. His eyes, dark and steady, held a quiet authority that didn't match his simple attire. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked. His English accented but clear, his voice low enough to keep my humiliation private. I straightened, forcing composure. "My card's not working, and I lost my papers. I just need a room, please." He nodded, unfazed, and stepped to the front desk. I expected questions, bureaucracy, but he typed swiftly, his fingers moving with precision. "We'll sort it out," he said, glancing at me. "I'll use an internal ID to hold a suite for you tonight. You can settle the rest tomorrow." A suite? I frowned, my exhaustion battling suspicion. "You're a concierge. You can do that?" His lips twitched, not quite a smile. "I've been here a while. It's fine." I was too tired to argue. He handed me a keycard, his fingers careful not to brush mine, and led me to the elevator. The Handong's interior was a blend of old Korea and modern luxury lacquered wood panels, soft lanterns, and floors of gleaming marble. My boots squeaked, embarrassingly loud, as we reached the top floor. The suite's hallway stretched before us, lined with intricate screens and vases of winter plum blossoms. I felt like an intruder in this elegance, my damp coat dripping onto the stone. Min-jun carried my suitcase, his movements effortless. "This way," he said, gesturing to a door. I took a step, but my boots slipped on the slick marble, my body pitching forward. A gasp escaped me, and before I could hit the ground, his arm caught me, strong and steady. But in that split second, his hand grazed my chest, an accidental brush as he pulled me upright. The world stopped. Michael's betrayal flashed in my mind, his lies, his touch on someone else. My heart roared, drowning out reason. Without thinking, I spun and slapped him, and shouted, "Don't touch me, you're all bastards." The crack echoing like a gunshot in the silent hall. My palm stung, and Min-jun froze, his eyes widening, then darkening with something I couldn't read. Shock, hurt, maybe both. His hand touched his cheek, but he didn't speak. "I'm not someone you can just—" I choked, my voice trembling with rage and shame. I couldn't finish. I grabbed my suitcase, stumbled into the suite, and slammed the door, the lock clicking like a final judgment. My breath came in gasps, my back against the wood as I slid to the floor. The room was stunning silk drapes, a wide window framing Chuncheon's snowy hills, but all I saw was my own failure. I'd lashed out at a stranger, a man who'd helped me when no one else had. Michael's betrayal had broken me, but this was on me. I pressed my hands to my face, the cold of my fingers grounding me. Min Jun's face lingered his calm, his silence after the slap. He hadn't deserved that. I'd come to Chunshan to heal, to find myself, but I was unraveling instead. Tomorrow, I'd find him. I'd apologize, even if it meant swallowing every ounce of pride. I didn't know who he was, this young concierge with too much power and too few words, but I knew I'd crossed a line. As snow fell outside, blanketing the world in quiet, I vowed to make it right, unaware that he'd already begun to change the rhythm of my heart. Morning light filtered through the frost-covered windows of my suite, casting pale patterns on the wooden floor. I woke with a heaviness in my chest, the memory of last night's slap sharper than the Chunshan cold. My reflection in the mirror showed tired eyes and braids frayed from travel, but it was the shame that weighed most. Min Jun, the young concierge who'd saved me from a night on the streets, hadn't deserved my anger. Michael's betrayal had left me raw, seeing threats where there were none. I owed him an apology, and I'd face it, no matter how much my pride stung. I asked a maid where I might find Min Jun, and she pointed me to the hotel's tea garden, a quiet courtyard tucked behind the main building. Snow dusted the stone paths, and bare cherry trees stood like sentinels in the morning chill. I pulled my coat tighter, my boots crunching as I spotted him. He sat on a wooden bench, a steaming cup of tea in his hands, his dark hair catching flecks of snow. His face was calm, but the faint red mark on his cheek, my doing, made my stomach twist. Min Jun, I called softly, stopping a few feet away. His eyes lifted, steady and unreadable, but he didn't stand. I took a breath, my voice unsteady. I'm sorry. Last night, I overreacted. I was upset, not at you, but it's no excuse. I shouldn't have hit you. He studied me, his silence stretching until I thought he'd dismiss me. Then he set his cup down, his voice low. I didn't mean to make you feel unsafe. I should have been more careful. You were helping me, I said, shaking my head. I was the one who got it wrong. I've been through something, and it's messed with my head. He nodded, his gaze softening. Apology accepted. Let's leave it there. I expected him to walk away, to let the moment dissolve into awkwardness. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and said, If you really want to make it up to me, I could use your help with something. I blinked, caught off guard. Help? With what? He stood, brushing snow from his coat, and gestured for me to follow. We walked through the hotel, past lacquered screens and glowing lanterns, until we reached a forgotten floor. The air smelled of dust, and the hallway led to a vast room, its walls lined with faded silk and empty display cases. This used to be an art gallery, Min Jun said, his voice echoing. Old paintings, ceramics, stories of Chunshan. It's been abandoned for years, but we're reviving it for the winter festival. We need someone with vision to make it special. I stared at him, my mind racing. You're a concierge. Why are you in charge of this? He smiled, a quick flash that didn't answer my question. I know you're Hannah Franklin, the designer. I saw your name on the guest list. Your work's bold. This place needs that. My cheeks warmed. I hadn't designed anything since Michael's betrayal, since my studio in New York felt like a graveyard of dreams. How do you know I can do this? Because you came here, he said simply. You're still standing, even after whatever hurt you. That's enough. His words hit deeper than I expected. Stirring something dormant, I walked the room, tracing the cracked walls, imagining silk drapes and soft lights. Okay, I said finally. I'll try, but I'm not promising miracles. That's all I need, he said, his eyes holding mine a moment too long. We started the next day. I sketched layouts, chose colors, sourced fabrics from local markets. Minjun was there, bringing coffee or carrying heavy bolts of cloth without complaint. He didn't hover, but his presence was steady, like the snow outside, quiet but constant. One morning, as I struggled with a lighting concept, he suggested using lanterns inspired by Chunchan's winter lakes. They glow like stars on the water, he said, and I saw it instantly, my pencil flying across the page. Thanks, I said, looking up. You're good at this. He shrugged, but his smile was warm. I just know what I like. We talked more as the days passed. I told him about my mother, a seamstress whose hands wove magic no one valued. He shared how Chunchan's winters felt like home, even when the world expected him to be elsewhere. Our conversations were careful, like steps on thin ice, but each one built a bridge. I caught myself watching him, his careful movements, the way his laugh broke his serious facade. I told myself it was gratitude, nothing more. My heart was too bruised to trust again, especially with someone 6 years younger, someone whose life I barely understood. But when he handed me a coffee, his fingers grazing mine, my pulse quickened, and I wondered if he felt it too. As the gallery took shape, so did something else, a spark I hadn't meant to kindle. I wasn't ready to name it, but I knew I looked forward to his visits, his voice, his quiet faith in me. For the first time since New York, I felt like Hannah again, not the broken woman Michael left behind. The old gallery was coming alive, its dusty corners transformed by my hands. Silk drapes in deep indigo hung like midnight skies, and lanterns cast golden light across restored wooden floors. Each day in Chunchan, I felt a piece of myself return the Hana who designed with fire, not the shadow Michael left behind. At 32, I'd forgotten how it felt to create without fear. But this project, this place, was waking me up. And Minjun, with his quiet presence, was part of it. He appeared most mornings, a cup of barley tea in hand, his dark eyes scanning my sketches before offering a nod or a rare smile. At 26, he carried a steadiness that didn't match his youth, a calm that made the chaos of my past feel distant. We worked side by side, arranging panels, testing lights, our conversations weaving between fabric choices and fleeting glimpses of who we were. I told myself it was professional, that his visits were about the project. But when he lingered after dropping off supplies, or when his laugh broke through his reserved facade, my heart stirred in ways I wasn't ready to name. One afternoon, I hit a wall. The main installation, a cascading display of silk meant to evoke Chunchan's frozen lakes, wasn't right. I sat on the floor, sketches scattered, frustration burning. Minjun walked in, carrying a small speaker. Without a word, he set it down and played a traditional Korean melody, all soft strings and mournful notes. The sound filled the room, and suddenly, I saw it. The silk needed to flow, not hang, like water trapped in ice. I grabbed my pencil, sketching furiously. "How did you know?" I asked, looking up, my voice softer than I meant. He shrugged, sitting across from me. It reminded me of the lake at dawn. I thought it might help. "You didn't just help," I said, holding up the sketch. "You gave me the heart of this whole design." His eyes met mine, warm and unguarded. "You would have found it, Hannah. I just sped it up." That moment shifted something. Our talks grew deeper, less about work and more about us. One evening, as we sorted fabric samples, he told me about his childhood dream of painting. how his father's expectations of running Handong crushed it. I used to sketch by the lake, he said, his voice low. But business school was the plan. No choice. I traced a piece of silk, my throat tight. My mom was a seamstress. She'd sew until her fingers bled, but no one saw her talent. I swore I'd make it for her, but sometimes I wonder if I've lost myself trying. He looked at me, not with pity, but with understanding. You're still here, creating. That's not losing. His words stayed with me, like a lantern in the dark. We started spending time outside the gallery, a walk through Chunchen's snow-dusted streets, a shared bowl of hot tuk from a market stall. One night, he took me to the lake, its surface a mirror of ice under the moon. We stood close, our breaths visible, and he pointed to the stars. They're clearer here, he said, away from the city. I nodded, but I wasn't looking at the sky. I was watching him, the way his face softened, the way he made me feel seen. My heart raced, and I stepped back, scared of how much I wanted to close the distance. 6 years wasn't a huge gap, but my past Michael's lies, my broken trust felt like a chasm. Minjun was different, but I wasn't sure I could let myself fall. The next day, he found me in the gallery, struggling with a heavy light fixture. He took it from my hands, our fingers brushing. My pulse jumped, and I saw a flicker in his eyes, like he felt it too. You don't have to do everything alone, he said, his voice gentle. I'm used to it, I replied, but my smile was shaky. He paused, then said, the management team wants to see your designs next week. They're impressed with your work. Will you present? I hesitated. A room full of executives wasn't my comfort zone, especially not in a foreign country. But his faith in me, steady as ever, made me nod. I'll do it, but only if you're there. He smiled, a real one that reached his eyes. I wouldn't miss it. As I watched him walk away, I felt a warmth I hadn't known in years. Minjun wasn't just a colleague or a friend. He was becoming something more, and that terrified me as much as it thrilled me. I wasn't ready to name it, but I knew I wanted him in my life, whatever that meant. The conference room at Handong Hotel gleamed with polished wood and floor-to-ceiling windows. Chunchen's snowy hills framed like a painting beyond the glass. I stood at the head of the table, my sketches spread out, my heart pounding under the weight of a dozen executive gazes. At 32, I'd presented designs in New York's cutthroat fashion world. But this felt different, vulnerable, like I was offering a piece of myself. Minjun sat near the back, his dark eyes steady, his nod giving me courage. I took a breath and began, explaining the silk cascades, the lantern-lit paths, the way the gallery would breathe Chunchen's winter soul. The room erupted in applause when I finished, and a woman in a sharp blazer called my work visionary. I smiled, my chest light with pride, but then I heard a whisper from a young staff member at the door, meant for someone else, but loud enough to cut through. Director Min really picked the right person for this. Director Min. My eyes snapped to Minjun, who was clapping, oblivious to the slip. The word echoed, sharp and cold. Director, not concierge. I kept my composure through the meeting's end, shaking hands, accepting praise. But my mind churned. As the room emptied, I lingered, waiting for Minjun. He approached, his smile warm. You were incredible, Hana. They loved it. Who are you? I asked, my voice low, trembling. He froze, his expression shifting from confusion to realization. I stepped closer, my hands clenched. I heard them. Director Min, you're not just a concierge, are you? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Hana, I was going to tell you. Tell me what? I cut in, my voice rising. That you're not who you said you were, that you've been lying to me? I didn't lie, he said, his tone calm but firm. I'm Seo Min-jun, son of the chairman. I work as a concierge to learn the business from the ground up. But everything I've said to you, everything we've shared, it's real. Real? I laughed, bitter, the sound harsh in the empty room. You let me believe you were just some guy helping me out. Do you know how that feels? To think I was seen for me, not played for some project? His eyes darkened, hurt, flickering. I never played you. I saw your work, your talent. I gave you a chance because I believed in you, not because of who I am. Then why hide it? I demanded, my voice breaking. You knew about Michael, about how he lied, and you still let me trust you blind. Min-jun stepped closer, his voice soft but steady. I hid it because I wanted you to see me, Hannah. Not the title, not the family name, just me. Was that so wrong? I turned away, my throat tight. Michael's face flashed in my mind, his charm, his lies, the way he'd made me feel small. Min-jun wasn't him, but the sting of deception felt too familiar. I can't do this, I whispered. I thought I could, but I can't. Hannah, please, he said, reaching out. But I stepped back, shaking my head. I left the room, my boots echoing in the silent hall, my heart a tangled mess of anger and ache. That night, I didn't return to the gallery. The sketches, the silks, the lanterns, they felt like a dream that wasn't mine anymore. I sat in my suite, staring at the snow falling outside, replaying every moment with Min-jun. His quiet laugh, the way he'd known exactly what I needed for my designs, the warmth of his presence by the lake. He hadn't lied about those things, but the omission of his identity cut deep. I'd opened my heart, let myself hope, only to find another layer of distrust. Michael had broken me, but I'd let Min-jun in, and that was on me. I decided to leave Chuncheon after the festival. The gallery was nearly complete. They could finish without me. I packed my suitcase, my hands shaking as I folded the fabrics I'd chosen with him. I wanted to believe he'd meant every word, every look, but doubt was louder. 6 years younger, worlds apart in status, maybe we'd been foolish to think this could work. As I sealed the last box, I looked at the window, the snow relentless. I'd come here to heal, but I was running again, and I didn't know if I was saving myself or losing something irreplaceable. The winter festival lit up Handong Hotel, its courtyard glowing with lanterns I'd designed, their soft light dancing on the snow. I wasn't there to see it. I'd left Chuncheon the day before, my suitcase packed, my heart heavy with the weight of what I'd walked away from. But in the gallery, where dust once clung to forgotten dreams, I left a piece of myself, a white silk dress, simple and flowing, hung in the center. A small card dangled from its hem, my handwriting steady, for the one who gave me a second chance. I didn't sign it. Min-jun would know. 3 months later, I stood in a New York gallery, my own this time, surrounded by the hum of critics and strangers. Chuncheon, December, my exhibit, was a tapestry of silk and light, each piece born from those weeks in Korea. At 32, I'd rebuilt myself, my designs sharper, bolder, carrying the soul of a place that had changed me. But as I moved through the crowd, adjusting a display, I felt him before I saw him. A familiar stillness, a quiet that cut through the noise. Min-jun stood by a sculpture of cascading fabric, his dark coat dusted with city snow. His eyes, those same steady eyes from Chuncheon, traced the work I'd poured my heart into. He didn't approach, didn't speak, just watched, as if giving me space to decide. My breath caught. Michael's betrayal, a faint echo compared to the ache of leaving Min-jun behind. I'd run from him, from the truth of who he was, but I couldn't run from what he'd given me, belief in myself, in my worth. I crossed the room, my heels clicking on the polished floor. His gaze lifted, and for a moment, we were back in that dusty gallery, silk and lanterns between us. I stopped an arm's length away, my voice soft. You came. I had to see it, he said, his English careful, his eyes never leaving mine. Your heart's in every piece. I swallowed, my throat tight. I left something for you. Did you find it? He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. The dress, it's still there, in the gallery. I couldn't move it. Silence settled, warm and heavy. I reached out, my hand finding his. His fingers closed around mine, steady as ever, and in that touch, I felt Chunchan's snow, the lakes quiet, the music that had sparked my designs. We didn't speak, didn't need to. I'd come to Korea broken, believing I was unworthy of love. Minjun hadn't fixed me. He'd shown me I was enough, scars and all. At 26, he'd carried a wisdom I hadn't expected, a patience that let me heal on my own terms. I learned something in those months. Love isn't about promises or perfect endings. It's about the people who see you, truly, and make you want to be better. Minjun had been that for me, not because he stayed, but because he let me go, trusting I'd find my way. Our 6-year gap, his hidden identity, the world's expectations they hadn't defined us. What mattered was the courage to hold someone's hand, to choose trust over fear. I didn't know where we'd go from here. Maybe we'd talk, maybe we'd walk New York streets, or maybe this moment was all we'd have. But as I stood there, his warmth grounding me, I knew I'd carry Chunchan forever, a place where I'd learned I was worthy of love, not despite my past, but because of it. My heart had stayed, and somehow it had found its way back, right here, in the quiet of his hand in mine.